Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker. Later, we will have Steeler alumni safety Robert Golden, but until then and throughout the show, we will always have my Steeler twin, Hunter Homistek. How you doing, Hunter?
My dude, I look forward all week to seeing how you're going to intro me. You always keep it fresh. It's never the same. I like it. It's always that perfect little ego boost for me. I'm excited for today, man. Having Robert on the show is sick. When you said that, it just made me that much more exciting, so that's cool.
And I let him know late, guys. I should have been cluing him in on yesterday on this when we knew Robert was going to be joining the show. I ended up telling him, like, this morning. Was it last night or this morning?
It was last night, I think.
It was last night. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I knew the day before, but I should have let you know earlier. But either way, we're psyched to have Robert back on the show. We interviewed him a little bit earlier in the year. You can always go back and listen to the interviews. He's an awesome interview. He's great to talk to. Great guy. And also, big thank you, too. We just need a shout-out here quickly to our excellent sponsor. And I'll show you guys right here who the new jersey giveaway of the weeks from Total Sports Enterprises is going to be. And that is, where's my share screen? Here we go. Boom. And we have a giveaway for a free signed Bud Dupree custom color rush jersey. All you have to do is go to Total Sports Enterprises on Twitter at Total Sports ENT. You follow them and you retweet it, you're automatically entered. If you also follow the podcast _SN podcast, you get a bonus entry. So 2 entries for the price of 1 retweet for this great custom signed Bud Dupree custom color rush jersey.
I want that. Once again, I think I'm entering. Just save it for me. What a year. What a year Bud's having, huh? Everybody wondered if he could follow up what he did last year, if that was an anomaly. And I think 3 games in, it's pretty clear that Bud Dupree is just good at football. So
he is, man, and he's showing he can do it. So I am really happy for him. And I'm hoping that Edmonds is also on that same trajectory. He's starting to make plays this year, and he's still making plays every game now. So he keeps building on that. That's what you want to see when they start hitting 3rd, 4th year. Sometimes it takes some players longer than others, especially when they're that talented.
Yeah. I think people underestimate how tough it is to just enter the league and hit the ground running. I mean, The guys you see do that are few and far between. And you can even go back to some all-time greats like Troy Polamalu, who struggled mightily as a rookie. And it's just not easy. It's not easy, especially when you're being tasked to do a lot like these guys are at vital positions like outside linebacker, strong safety. Obviously, it's just a crazy tough job for these guys.
Well, before we get into the crazy news for the COVID stuff, which I know everybody's talking about right now, first thing I got to talk about, though, is Steelers are now, thanks to the game last night on Monday Night Football, Kings of the North. But I can't really enjoy it yet because we have to see whether or not we're playing this weekend. Obviously, I don't know if you've been following it online, on Twitter, but there's 3 confirmed positive tests by the Tennessee Titans that are players, 5 confirmed tests for people that are not players, whether they're front office or coaches. We're not positive yet. We don't have names yet, but we do know that there's 8 total positive tests from the Tennessee Titans. So now it's been up in the air all morning. Are the Steelers going to play? Are the Titans going to forfeit? What's going to go on with this whole with this whole interaction with the Titans in it? And it looks like initially they're going to say an option might have been move the Titans-Steeler game to week 7 because that is the Titans' bye week. That would have been the week that the Steelers play the Ravens, but they just moved that game from week 7 to week 8 when the Ravens and Steelers bye week would have been. It would have affected, obviously, Tennessee and Pittsburgh bye week being week 4 now, and the Ravens bye week would go from 7 to 8. But we've gotten even better news. It looks like the game is going to go on. We just got word from the league. It's been shot around by a couple of the reporters from ESPN, so we're very happy to see it. It looks like they're going to make the game go on. It looks like it's going to be difficult for the Tennessee team to prepare for it because they're not allowed in their facility until Saturday. But their coach already tweeted, if this is the way it's going to go, if we've got to show up on Saturday, do our walkthrough, play a game on Sunday, we're going to make it happen. So kudos to Coach Vrabel over there, former Steeler alum as well, former Steeler draft pick, now great coach. And I'm glad to see that he wants to play his former team in there and host us on Sunday there in Tennessee.
Well, it sounds super homery of me to take this route, but that's what should happen. I mean, they've set up so many things in place to guard against this happening. The NFL getting a later start, obviously, than the NHL, NBA, and MLB. So they saw examples of how this could work out and what they should do to protect from that. You have expanded rosters. You have different guidelines in place to help protect it. 3 Titans players, it's not an insignificant amount by any means, but you should be able to handle 3 positive tests and still go on. Now, if half your team tested positive and it was something crazy like that, by all means, you need to start looking into an alternative method. But just 3 players, that seems like something the NFL should be able to handle. And even more than that, if they don't handle it, that now sets the bar of pretty much any positive test has to cancel a game for any future positive test, because I guarantee you this isn't the last time a team has players test positive. So if you come out of the gates and instantly say, oh, we can't play 3 positive tests, it's too much for us to handle, then where do you draw the line? If somebody down the line has 2 positive tests, they've already had their bye week, then what do you do? So it's right of the NFL and of the Titans and Steelers to find a way to make this work. Not saying it's going to be easy, and for sure, if I was a Titans fan, I would be feeling a little upset about this, feeling like it's a bit of a disadvantage. Yeah. But these are the times that we live in, and I'm sure it's going to come around. Look, man, the Titans are 3-0 as well. It's not like they're battling for a playoff spot yet. They're off to a good start. Yeah. If you go 3-1, it's not a death sentence on your season by any means. So hopefully, it all works out and it's a fair competitive game. But it's going to be weird, and it's going to be weird for both teams, just knowing that it's a thing. It's going to be in the back of their mind. Players and coaches are going to get asked about it relentlessly. Yep. It's not going to be fun, but at least it's looking like we're going to have football this weekend.
And I'm glad for that. You hit the nail on the head perfectly. Obviously, the COVID lists we have to have, they're in place. If they were going to cancel this because of 3 positive players, that would have been an injustice to the league and the system that they've set up. Obviously, they've got the COVID rules in place for a reason. They're doing their contact tracing, and that's going to be the difficult thing, because it turned out they had a positive coach going into the previous game against Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So now with the contact tracing elements that they do have, that you wear during game day, that you wear during training, they're going through and they're seeing all those people that person contacted, and they're going to try to give them extra tests just to make sure that they are not going to be COVID positive as well.
Right.
And that's the best way to shut this thing down, because we all want football to happen this weekend, and that's the smart way to do it. And this is the first big test for the NFL, and unfortunately, it's happening to our team. We'll take it. We'll go with it. I mean, It's one thing, though, that I think would help our team, obviously, not just because it's a negative to the Titans for not being able to practice as much or prepare as much, but I think it's a bonus to Big Ben as well, because it takes a little bit of pressure off of him. I mean, this has been the whole, Big Ben comeback scenario. Everything's been him in a microcosm, how he's reacting to things, how he's delivering the football, and he's doing a great job. 7 touchdowns to 1 interception on the season so far. Phenomenal. But this takes a little bit of pressure off of him. The story's not about Ben this week. So this allows Ben to get into his groove, relax, hit his receivers, work on timing. Hopefully, we get DJ back in the lineup here soon with that concussion protocol going on right now. But, biggest thing, we got to move on to the game at least. What a great Steeler win, coming back from behind, both down 14-3, down 21-17 to pitch a shutout in the second half. And then Ben upped his game again, 23 for 36, 237, 2 touchdowns. And the big thing that I loved was now Big Ben just passed Iron Mike Webster to be the biggest Benjamin of them all for the Steelers. That is my new nickname for Big Ben. He is so big now. He is biggest Benjamin. But it's amazing to think, like, it really didn't put it in perspective for me yet, Hunter, until you see him pass that name, Iron Mike Webster, that we all know as being that player that played so many games, game in and game out, never took a game off, almost his entire career basically playing injured, playing with broken bones. And Big Ben's the same way. He's another guy that plays injured.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. When the stat came on the screen, obviously we knew from last week when they said he tied the record that he was going to break it the next week, but
Yeah.
that's an amazing feat, and it's weirder for me personally, just in a selfish way. You know, I didn't see those 70s teams when I was growing up. So to see a guy that I remember they drafted, I remember him getting his first career start, now breaking the record. It's crazy to think that
Yeah.
Ben Roethlisberger has been the quarterback of the Steelers for more than half my life. Like
Wow.
more than half of my life has involved Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that way, but just what he's done for this team. And if he's in the game, you just feel like you have a shot. I know every Steelers fan can relate to that feeling. Like when Seven's under center, you just have a good feeling about it. And man, you touched on it a little bit, but what a season he's having. Actually,
Yeah.
I feel like incredibly underrated so far. If you extrapolate his stats out across a whole season, it's like 37 touchdowns against 5 or 6 picks. It's a ridiculous ratio for him. He's never been Aaron Rodgers, you know, Mr. Careful, not throwing picks. He's always had his fair share of picks, but man, he cut down on that. What a difference it's made, because all last year, all we said throughout the Mason and Duck show was, if they just don't turn it over, we're going to have a chance with this defense. Well, Ben took that to another level and not turning it over, but also injecting legitimate life into the offense. So it's been fun to watch. The game was definitely not without its flaws, though, man. I made a promise to myself that I was just going to go full Yinzer fan when I was watching the game. Just pound a couple beers and just let my knee-jerk reactions take over, which was super fun. Highly recommend anybody let that happen from time to time. But man, I was cursing Fichtner, and I was cursing the play calling in the first half. I was cursing the defense for their soft coverage.
I saw your tweets.
Yeah, man. It was fun. But then what did they do? They come out in the second half and just make me eat every single word twice over. Everything changed at halftime, which was, man, throughout Tomlin's career and this coaching staff's career, halftime adjustments have not really been their thing. You know, that was always the Bill Belichick Patriots thing. Like, okay, you have a decent first half, but you know they're going to make those adjustments right on the money that they need in the second half. And I think that's the mark of a truly great team, is adapting on the fly, which they did. I mean, freaking perfectly, man. Everything changed in the second half. It was a tale of two games. Deshaun Watson looked like MVP caliber in the first half, and then he looked like, you know, B starter level in the second half. They just totally changed the complexity of the game on the fly at halftime. So nothing better than that for Steelers fans. They've now shown that they can beat inferior teams, which has always been a problem. Everybody thinks is a problem. I don't know if the stats really bear that out or not, but regardless, people think it's a problem. So they've proven that they can beat inferior teams. Now against the Titans, they get a real test against another undefeated team. We're going to really see where they're at. If they come out of that Titans game with another win, it's time to start getting ultra hype, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And one play I want to highlight, I know I'm showing the highlights as we're talking here, but I want to highlight one play in specific for Big Ben where he didn't throw the ball, he didn't run the ball, he used his big body to help a play. And if you're watching on Facebook, and Hunter here watching as well, we're getting to see this play directly. 1st and 10 on the 13, on second down with 7 minutes and 44 seconds to go. I'm going to run it here, and this is going to be a reverse. You're going to see Connor take the play right, and then you're going to see Deontay Johnson reverse the play left. So at the snap of the ball, here comes Connor giving it, and then watch Ben, boom, taking out the defensive end right there at the line. And that is something that, you know, I love watching quarterbacks when they go downfield and they block for their team to make a big play. Almost a touchdown. Unfortunately, DJ got a hit on the play, but here it is from the reverse angle. Watch Ben come down and break down right there. Took the defensive end completely out of the play. And, you know, in my humble opinion, Hunter, if he can do that, he can do a quarterback sneak in short down yardage and stop going shotgun on 3rd down and 4th down and short, for God's sakes.
I had a feeling that was coming, man, and I couldn't agree more with you. I still don't understand their reluctance against the quarterback sneak, so it's strange. It clearly needs to be part of the game plan. But I don't know. I mean, Benny Snell is clearly becoming that short yardage back. Against the Texans, you saw that play out for sure, and he did a good job at it. So I like the mix they have at running back in general right now, man, just to segue into that. But, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So here we have, we're going to go triple box here. Ladies and gentlemen, Steeler Nation, I am going to admit Robert Golden into the podcast. It'll take probably just a couple minutes for him to ramp up and jump on. But Robert, can you hear us?
There he is.
I know, it's great to see him again. Look at he's got his beautiful shirt on, showing off highlighting his Charter Academy.
Right.
Love to see it. How you doing, Rob? Great to see you again, man.
Always good, man. Always a pleasure to join you and connect with Steeler Nation, brother.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you back, because, I mean, we got to know you real well in the last interview we did with you. Let's go right off the bat quickly. We're just going to switch gears, and I want you to tell Steeler Nation a little bit more about the polo that you're wearing and your Charter Academy to start off, you know, what it's all about and where we can find information on it.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's the Golden Charter Academy.
Black and golden.
That's right. That's right. It's the first K through 8th environmental stewardship school, zoo school in the nation. We've been working with the Fresno Chaffee Zoo and developing something very innovative that's never been done before. And I kind of mentioned this to you before in our last podcast, but, you know, I walked away from the game, you know, to do this, to help serve underserved children that come from the community that I do, and also underserved communities and poverty areas here throughout the Fresno Valley, to kind of give our kids exposure to a life that they'd never get exposed to had they not went to the Golden Charter Academy. You know, my vision behind Golden Charter Academy is to create the Disneyland of schools, a place where every child would want to be, you know. So in my efforts and partnering with the Fresno Chaffee Zoo, I think the kids will be in for a great experience come 2021 of August.
And everybody on the podcast, they have a beautiful black and gold color scheme, of course, both a throwback and an honor to Robert Golden's team and his beautiful name as well with that black and golden.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, my high school was black and gold, and Steelers is black and gold. So black and gold runs in my blood now.
That's me too, man. All my teams are black and gold. Pittsburgh all the way. My UMBC was black and gold. So I feel you, man. That's great. And it looks great too. I love those masks. Did you have those made for all the children?
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's the times that we're living in now. We also have some different sizes and different kind of masks that we'll be able to provide for our youth. But with us being an environmental stewardship school, a lot of our class time will be taking place outside. So it's crazy because we've been developing this school for over a year and a half now. And it's like the curriculum and what we're doing for our school was kind of being put in place to prevent a COVID response before COVID even broke out. So I just feel like I'm walking in my purpose right now. And this school is meant to be.
Oh, that's great, Robert. And Steeler Nation, be sure to go to goldencharteracademy.org to find out some more information on that. And we'll touch base on this at the end of your interview as well. But we've hit the ground running here. And may I introduce you to Hunter Homistek as well. He's my co-host this year. Hunter, Rob Hunter.
What's up, guy?
Nice to meet you, Robert.
Love the background, man. I love the background.
I was hoping it would take you back and make you want to come visit the city.
Absolutely, man, for sure. That's one place that I definitely got to get back to, man, as soon as we get to a somewhat normalcy again.
No doubt. I'm hoping for it too, man. It's a beautiful city. This is the Golden Charter Academy is amazing, man. Congrats on launching that and kind of hitting your second career running. You know, you hear so many players that struggle to find something to do after football. Yeah. It seems like a lot of Steelers have done this and kind of transitioned seamlessly. Does the organization talk to you about that stuff ahead of time and help you plan this?
I mean, with the Steelers, you know, I think that's just a first-class organization all the way around. You know, when I first came in, they had a player development guy named Ray Jackson who definitely kind of just, you know, mentored me and showed me how to be a pro. And then they brought in Terry Cousins, who is a great player development guy as well. So those two gentlemen, you know, they bring in a lot of resources to help players in their career, and then, you know, help set them up for post-career transitions as well. But as I mentioned before, you know, doing this Golden Charter Academy is something that I wanted to do to help my underserved youth in Southwest Fresno. So when I walked away from the game, man, it was to do this. So I was excited, man, to just be in this position that I'm in right now, to be able to impact the lives of our youth.
Nice. That's excellent, man.
And we already hit the ground running here. We've been talking about the Steelers' performance last week against the Texans, and we just talked about Big Ben. Now we're moving on. We're going to talk about James Conner and his rushing performance. 18 carries for 109, a touchdown, 4 catches on 5 targets, 40 yards. And they did a great job, too, Robert and Hunter, of working all of the running backs into the game. You saw McFarland come out for that change of pace, going 6 for 42 in his first game. Snell was hitting some short yardage. They had Samuels out there in the 2-minute drill and some passing situations. So how did it look like to the both of you?
Man, I'll tell you what, man, the Steelers are always a team that is well prepared. That's one thing that Coach Tomlin do a great job of. And there's so many, assets that Ben can utilize in that offense, man. I'm just excited to have Ben back this season and excited for what's to come, man, for their future, man. I tell you what, if that defense, can continue to get better as the season go on and the offense can continue to evolve, man, the sky's the limit for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I don't know how you expect me to go after Robert Golden in football analysis. I'm not going to out football analyze him, but he's right. Obviously, I mean, it's crazy to see a blend of running backs that goes 4 deep. I can't remember the last time that the Steelers have trotted out 4 in a single game with distinct characteristics of each. When McFarland entered the game, you could see the burst and the speed that everybody was excited about. Snell, obviously more of a bruiser and can do a little bit of everything. Conner the same way. Samuels pass catching. It's just, as a defender, Robert, how tough is that when you have 4 different running backs who may not be all Pro Bowl level, but they each do something differently very well?
I mean, that's one thing, when you a defensive coordinator, man, you got to plan for all 4 running backs, and that's one thing that the Steelers do. When I was there during my time, we used to evaluate players and how the offense were using them. You have some guys that are gadget guys, you got some guys that are sprint backs and power backs, so your defense may change based on who's in the game. So with that being said, for a defensive coordinator to have to plan for 4 different type of running backs, I'm sure that'll pose some problems for different teams that they're going to be facing later on down the line.
For sure. They got a power back coming up, Derrick Henry, unless he's one of the 3 who has COVID. I guess we don't really know yet.
Right. I mean, is that game even going to be played?
Yeah, we don't know. know.
So far with the news that we went through earlier, the latest news is stating they are going to move forward with the game, Robert. So
nice.
That's a good word, especially with the way that they've set up the whole COVID situation. And, with the COVID rosters and the extended rosters and being able to bring people on and off the injured reserve more easily and the practice squad. So it's really nice to hear that those things are going to be utilized and in place for this emergency situation.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear. But yeah, man, whenever the Steelers play, the Tennessee Titans, I want to say we always had our way with them, but one thing's for sure, man, the Steelers pride themselves on smashing the run. So I'm looking forward to them doing that against Derrick Henry, who's been a phenomenal back in this league since he stepped in it. But one thing's for sure, Coach Tomlin's going to make sure that they are prepared to smash the run.
I've got a question for you then, Robert. When you're going into a game as a defensive player and there's strength their upcoming week, hey, you're going to be playing Derrick Henry. He's one of the best backs in the league. Hey, you know how dangerous he is, how tough he is to break down.
Correct.
How would Coach Tomlin and Coach Butler approach the secondary room, the safeties, and tell you your role for how you're going to attack Derrick Henry?
Well, that's one thing they always say. You better bring your big boy pass this week. It's going to be a physical matchup there. One thing that Coach Tomlin and Coach Butler always said is in order to be a good defense, we got to have big guys running and little guys hitting. And when it comes to the little guys, that's your secondary, that's your corners, that's your safeties. Guys got to be ready to come in and fill the holes and make tackles right at the line of scrimmage. And the big man got to be able to run down a quarterback and also be able to chase. If a pass gets thrown, they got to be able to chase a receiver down, So when you have big guys running and little guys hitting, it makes for a great defense and a great defensive plan to stop the run and also combat the pass as well.
Nice. So is there anything specific plays that are written in for a running back of this counter? Do you guys go to more gap blitzing and run blitzing in this situation?
I mean, it all depends. When you got a running back like Derrick Henry and an offense like the Tennessee Titans, that's your more traditional two back, two tight ends, your 22 personnel. So when you come up with situations like that, a lot of times, the Steelers will like to bring in an extra safety and take out a corner. I've seen them do that numerous of times, and they did that when I was there. So one of the things that you want to have on the field is some for sure tacklers, some guys that are going to make contact at the line of scrimmage and hopefully stop the runner's progress right there and there, instead of letting them fall forward for the extra 3 or 4 yards that Derrick Henry is known to do.
Yeah, nice. And then would there be anything specific with the way that, I mean, you actually did play against Tannehill when you were in the league. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So would you be attacking him the same way? I guess he was a younger quarterback when you were back in the league, obviously. Mm-hmm. But what would the approach be, do you think, for the safeties for how you're going to play Tannehill when it gets to passing situations?
Well, I'll tell you what, for a safety, every down is a passing situation. every down is a passing situation. Our job is pass first, run second. D-line is run first. Linebackers is run first. Secondary is pass first at all times. So for a secondary position, I think it's pivotal that they keep their eyes where they're supposed to be, locked in on their coverage, whatever that may be, and let the D-line and the linebackers do what they're supposed to do, and that's smash the run. However, when it's time for a secondary person to come up and field a run support or come up and show up on a crack replace, they got to be ready to do that and hopefully make a good tackle right there at the line of scrimmage.
Nice. So I know you watched the game last week against the Texans.
Correct.
Obviously, the Steelers started off very difficult in the first half, got behind early, 14-3, fought their way back into the game, took the lead, but they ended up scoring again at the end of the half. The Texans did, to take a 21-17 lead there under 2 minutes into halftime. But it seemed like there was a night and day light switch difference between the defense in the first half, the way they approached the game, to the defense in the second half. Right. Now, can you tell Steeler Nation what you see, because you played on these defenses before?
Correct.
What was the switch that was made, and how did the Steelers approach the second half to make sure that they made the adjustments to shut down Deshaun Watson?
Right. Well, one of the things that Coach Tomlin always say is don't warm up to it. And what he mean by that is don't get off the bus playing slow. Get off the bus ready to go full speed. And from my observations of the game, it looked like the Steelers got off the bus and kind of warmed up to play. And when they came out in the second half, they looked at like the Steelers defense that has been balling for the previous 2 weeks. So one of the things that I just took away from it was the defense wasn't communicating well during that first half. It was a lot of misconceptions, I'll say, of who responsibilities was what. But once they warmed up and came out in that second half, they obviously put a good game plan together. I noticed, one of the big things that came up towards the end of the half is, the touchdown that Steven Nelson had gave up. But one of the things that we always know as a secondary, when it comes to the 2-minute drill, we got to eliminate them from scoring a touchdown. So I think if Steve could play a little better technique on that play, they don't get that score at the end of the half, and the game is not as close going into half as we thought it was. But one thing about the Steelers defense, they're going to continue to get better throughout the year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they put together coming down the stretch.
Are you impressed or surprised at the way they are getting pressure now at it seems like a franchise record rate? They now have 15 sacks in 3 games, which is up there at the franchise records. And also, I believe they have the least amount of rushing yards allowed for the first 3 games of the season in their history. So that says
Right.
a lot. I mean, you played on some good defensive teams. We've had some great
Absolutely.
defensive teams in the 70s. So
Absolutely.
how do you feel about that? And why do you think they're doing so well and being so successful at it this year?
Well, I tell you what, man. One thing that Coach Tomlin prides his defense to do is smash the run. And when you smash the run, then you put teams in passing situations. And one thing that we always say in Pittsburgh is rush and coverage work together. When you got two guys like Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt coming off the edge, man, it makes the secondary job a lot more easier because you're not worried about a quarterback standing back there with 4 or 5 seconds to dissect your defense and throw the ball. Man, the quarterback got less than 2 seconds now to get the ball off before Bud Dupree or T.J. Watt is back there for a sack. And even with the pressure that's coming up the middle with Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, those two guys right there can collapse a pocket before you know it, man. So I think it's great because when you have a D-line and a pass rush, like what the Steelers have right now, it's not going to do nothing but make the Steelers secondary play better. And together, that whole defense is going to eat if everybody do their job.
And I know Hunter and I were talking a little bit earlier before you jumped on the call. Hunter and Hunter brought up a great question as well, and I'd like him to talk to you.
Take the floor for Troy, man. I don't know if you got to see it, but Troy Polamalu just had a long post. It almost sounded like a Hall of Fame induction speech.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I just wanted your impressions of Troy, man, both as a player and as a person, because he's one of the most universally loved both players and human beings, I think, in Steelers history. And he almost sounds too good to be true. You know what I mean? What were your impressions of Troy when you were there with him?
Man, I tell you what, man. My high school was black and gold, so we looked at like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So every game in my high school career, I watched Troy Polamalu highlight tapes before I took the field, So being able to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers and play with Troy Polamalu, it was a dream come true for me. But I always tell this story. I remember walking into the locker room my rookie year, and it was off-season training, and vets wasn't there. And one day, Troy Polamalu showed up, and I met him for the first time. I mean, I can honestly say that was the first time I was ever starstruck. But just hearing, how soft-spoken and humble he was, and, the player that he was, I mean, this guy was Head and Shoulders commercials, he was all everything. And he was such a humble guy and just willing to help whoever came through those doors at the Pittsburgh Steelers facility. Doesn't matter if you was undrafted, first round, the janitor, the cook. Troy Polamalu just treated you like you were his family. And that's what makes him such a great person, is just that he welcomes everybody with love and open arms and just a humble guy. To be a guy that has that much clout and to be, the type of person and player that he was, to still be humble about your human being self and to be welcoming to others. I believe that's what makes Troy who he is, just an outstanding all-around individual.
Yeah, it's crazy because that's what you hear from everybody who talks about Troy. He just seems like one of the realest human beings,
Right.
that you could possibly be. How much do you carry? Like, what values did he teach you when you were there that you still carry you now into your next adventure in your next career? Do you still think about some of the things that he was able to show?
Absolutely, man. Just from a football standpoint, I always loved watching Troy, how he went about his business, taking care of his body, how he did his film study. People see Troy jumping over the line of scrimmage and playing, deep thirds and then blitzing, and people like, man, you supposed to have been way back there. How you blitz on that play? But people don't understand that Troy watched so much film and studied so much that he really knew what offenses were going to do. And that's why he took a lot of calculated risks. So that was one of the things that I tried to take away from him in my football playing careers is how to study film the way that he does. But one of the things that I take away from him in my personal life is to just be a humble person, man, and be a humble and loving person. And that's one thing that I try to do, no matter what accolades I was able to accomplish throughout my life or what I'm getting ready to step into. My whole overall deal is just to be a great all-around individual, like how Troy was. And that's what he'll want, for his teammates. And that's what I want for my sons, to no matter what success brings, in life. Just always be a humble and good person.
And Robert, do you have a specific story of an interaction between you and Troy that kind of sets in your mind that you always remember when you think about Troy?
Man, it's plenty of them, but I remember, I think it was my rookie year, man. I was actually starting at nickel my rookie year against the Cleveland Browns, and Troy is the type of player that if you're on the field, he may tell you something right before the ball snap, like, "Hey, you got deep third," and he'd take the curl and flat blitz. So.
Yeah.
It was one time during the game. The Cleveland Browns was getting ready to snap the ball, and he yelled at me, "Bro, take deep third. I got curl flat." So on the snap of the ball, I ran to deep third, and he ran to the curl of flat, and he got an interception.
Wow.
And he gave me the ball and said, "This is supposed to be your pick." I still have that ball right now to this day.
Oh,
that's beautiful.
I remember that like yesterday.
Oh,
I love that.
That is a great story. That's what we love as fans, because we don't get to sit in the locker room like you get to sit in the locker room.
Right.
And another thing that I want to know too specifically is, I'm a fan, and I think that Tomlin's doing an excellent job throughout this entire COVID situation, handling it excellently. Tell Steeler Nation what is the makeup of Mike Tomlin so that he can handle this type of adversity and have everybody ready for it.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that Coach T always emphasized. No matter what, the standard is the standard. And when he says the standard is the standard, it is what it is. Whether Ben Roethlisberger is playing or Duck is playing, the standard is the standard. Steelers is about winning. It's about being a first-class organization. And we got to uphold that standard. So I can imagine that he was saying similar things this offseason throughout the virtual offseason and things that have been going on. Is at the end of the day, Pittsburgh Steelers is held to a certain standard, and we have to meet those criteria no matter what's going on, due to COVID, due to backup players playing, or if they have to sign a free agent or bring somebody up off the practice squad. At the end of the day, the standard is the standard, and I think Coach Tomlin does a great job at emphasizing that with his players, and that's one of the reasons why he's been successful as a coach.
Oh, that's great. And is there any other players that you can think of that are on the team that you currently played with? I mean, I know you've got some of the players that are coming up when they were rooks when you were on the team. Like you've got Watt when he was young when you were playing there, and Bud Dupree as well. So talk to Steeler Nation what it was like to be in the locker room with those young guys learning how to play professional football. Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. One thing that's for sure, I think Kevin Colbert knows how to draft good players. He sees the potential in all the players that he brings in. And I can definitely remember, when Bud Dupree first got there and he was stepping onto the scene. People didn't see what Kevin Colbert saw in him, and I think they're starting to see it now, of how dynamic of a player he can be. And I actually trained with Bud while he was at Kentucky. His head coach over there, Mark Stoops, was my college coach at the University of Arizona. So I used to go visit them from time to time. And I remember training with Bud and just seeing how explosive he was back in those days. And then to see him come alive and put on the seasons he didn't put on for the past 2 years, I think it's safe to say that he's coming into his own, man, and he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. But then, look at T.J. Watt, man. I mean, his family's genetics, just kind of sets him up to be what he is, But both guys are hardworking guys, man. Ben is who he is, and I'm just excited to see him to continue to evolve throughout this season and hopefully, bring in that 7th Lombardi trophy. Nice.
So we got a couple questions here from Steeler Nation. They always love to hear from our former players. So this is a great, unique spot at SteelerNation.com. If you're part of the forum, you can jump on and ask questions when we have interviews or ask questions for the podcast, and we answer them here. But most of our questions are directed to you, Rob, because we're not as interesting as you are, number one. But number two, I mean, it's just great to have you on the show and to get your insight. And a couple questions. One of them is from Hoot, and he asks, how does that competitive fire still burn, and what do you do to sate it right now?
Can you repeat that question?
So we know you're a competitive guy. What do you do right now that's still part of competition for you in life?
Oh, gotcha. Well, I'll say, developing the school,
Yes.
I think the Golden Charter Academy is going to be one of the best schools in the nation. And not just, from an academic standpoint, but from how we're going to be, raising up kings and queens to take their rightful position and educating them in environmental literacy to help this world become a better place. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of stuff right now, from COVID and wildfires here in California, and also global warming, So one of the things that Golden Charter Academy is going to do is we're going to prepare the next generation to take on this world and help it become a better place. So I'm excited to make this school one of the best schools in the nation. And that's my competitiveness and adventure that I'm still, going with right now to this day.
Oh, that's great. And Drink Iron City also asks you, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about your personal life? Are you married? How long? Kids? Family?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, man. I am married to my wife for 4 years now. Been together for 7. I have a 3-year-old that will be 4 this Saturday. And
congrats.
I have a 9-month-old that'll turn 10 months on the 6th. So my young family definitely keeps me going, and they're my heart, they're my motivation. And without them, man, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm definitely thankful for, my family.
Oh, nice. And thanks for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
And last question for you from Drink Iron City. He says, of the current Steelers team, are there several certain players that you enjoy watching play the game on the current Steelers roster?
Yeah, man, I tell you what, that Claypool guy, he's going to be special. I remember when the Steelers drafted him, I was like, who's this guy? So then I went and looked up his stuff on Notre Dame, and I was like, oh, this is another Hines Ward right here,
Wow.
That's
a big.
Absolutely. It's not too many physical receivers in the league like how Hines Ward was back in the days, but I definitely see that in his game. Also, I see that in Juju's game as well too. But I'm excited. I'm excited to continue to see Claypool evolve and see the offense get him more involved in that offense and of the game plans to see what he can do. But also, T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward. I'm excited to see Tuitt this year.
Yeah.
He's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career, man. So I'm hoping for the best for him to stay healthy and really put on display, the type of player that I know he can be. But that whole team, man, is good. Steven Nelson is one of my guys. I spent time with him over in Kansas City. And
cool.
Also me and him trained together before we entered into the NFL, So
wow.
I'm excited to watch that whole team, man. Those are some of my guys on and off the field. And I'm always going to be rooting for the black and gold.
Oh, that's great. Steeler Nation, Robert Golden, Steeler alumni safety, joining us on the podcast. We thank you so much. We got your Twitter. To follow him on Twitter, please, at Rob Golden. That's at R0B G0LDEN. And Instagram at GoldenBoy21. That's GOLDENB0Y21. And of course, check out his Charter Academy online, www.goldencharteracademy.org, and see what you can do to help. It's out there in Fresno on the West Coast in California, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. And you're a class act, Rob. We love having you. Welcome on the show anytime, and just so great to have you again.
Man, awesome, man. I always appreciate the opportunity to come and connect with you and Steeler Nation, and look forward to doing this again, man, for sure.
Awesome. We'll see you soon, Rob. Thanks, man.
Yeah, nice meeting you, man.
Yep, nice meeting you. All right, now.
All right. Nice. And hey, now we get to go back to the show. Well, isn't that awesome?
Awesome.
We just get to sit down and talk to Steeler alumni. Great questions too, Hunter. I'm glad you got to talk with him because Rob's a great guy.
Absolutely. How do we follow that up now, though? I feel like we just need to pack this up.
I know, it's pretty much done, right?
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about some good things from last game that we didn't get to when he jumped on the phone. And one of the good things was working Eric Ebron into the pass attack. And he had 5 catches on 7 targets, big touchdown, 52 yards. Juju also had a nice game, 4 catches on 5 targets for 43 yards and a touchdown and a big first down to start that first drive. Now, 3 games into the season, Juju has 3 touchdowns. All of last year, Juju had 3 touchdowns. So he just matched his total from last year. And, of course, Washington advance, I thought we're doing nice on possession downs. Third downs got boosted up. Instead of two third down conversions the previous week, we had 8 for 18 this past week, but add 2 more to that because we were 2 for 2 on 4th downs.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're suggesting that a better quarterback equals a better Juju. I'm not sure that that's what you're saying.
Well,
but
it's just an interesting statistic. I'm not throwing shade at Rudolph or Duck in any way, shape, or form, but, I mean, you're talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback, not just a better quarterback. You're just talking about a Hall of Fame franchise quarterback who's been doing this now for 17 years.
Right.
17.
Right. What
My
a
gosh.
difference. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. What a difference a year makes, man. See, Babs, my dog's getting all excited about the Ben talk too, apparently.
That's why.
But
every time we talk about Ben, he barks.
Yeah. She's in on it. But man, it's crazy when you just mentioned the sheer options they have. You talk about Ebron coming out, and I think Tomlin hinted at that when he said something like, just wait and see as far as him becoming more
the previous
involved.
week. Yeah, you're
right.
I
mean, we knew that was going to happen at some point. They didn't sign Ebron to not use him. But when you look at this Steelers team, I know it sounds kind of hasty or like you're living in the moment too much, but I don't think there's been a Steelers offense this dynamic in my lifetime as far as simple, the bevy of options they have. We talked about the 4 running backs, 4 running backs.
Each of them have a role.
Each with a specific skill set that is tough to deal with. And then you look at the receivers, and while there's no AB yet, I think Deontay can get there if his body holds up, if he can stay healthy and keep developing. I'm not saying he'll get to AB's level, but he can be AB-like, as we talked about before on this show. I think he can be a star receiver in the league. Juju has already proven he can be a star receiver in the league. And also, he is doing so many little things. I love his effort in blocks. I love his effort after the catch. Kind of like Rob was talking about just a second ago, how he's becoming kind of Hines-Wardy, where it's not as flashy numbers-wise before, but the things he's doing for the team really can't be understated. The dude's playing with pure heart and passion, which, I mean, you just love to see that. I love seeing him on the sideline, putting his head down and barreling into defenders instead of stepping out of bounds. It's little stuff like that that sets the tone. And then James Washington has been reliable when they need him.
He's making some tough catches now. And that's something like I usually lose Washington in the game because he's such a prolific blocker. He's really good in the run game. But now he's making those tough catches that we knew. Like that's what I thought he was going to be. That Anquan Bolden type receiver to make with his big body to box people out and make those tough catches. And he's starting to do it now.
Yeah, and then you've still got Chase Claypool, who Robert Golden just said probably intrigues him more than anybody on the team.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what he's going to be. You know, I've said that he reminds me of Martavis, which I stand by. Now, if he's Martavis with a head on his shoulders that can get even better, that's dangerous. And when you add that into the mix of what we've already talked about, it's just a ridiculous surplus of options for Ben. And I think that's why you're seeing early on, nobody's really standing out statistically in that group, but the team is winning and the team's putting up points. So I don't know what more you'd want to see as a Steelers fan. It's an interesting offense as far as the options. I don't think we've ever, in my lifetime, I've never seen an offense like this with this many options, but it makes it incredibly fun to watch. And I don't know who's going to get the ball next, so I can't imagine what it's like for defenses game planning for this. It has to just be a miserable team to game plan for.
And this is the first game, though, that Claypool did not catch all of his targets. I know he was overthrown a couple times, but 1 for 4 on the targets this game. But he was perfect coming into this game, and that's difficult because there were some really difficult catches that he's had in the previous weeks. Yeah. But I wanted to move on to the defense now and just talk about how dominant they still continue to be, especially rushing the passer. 5 more sacks racked up in this game. Watt, Vince Williams, you got Tuitt, and you got Bush each with or those 3 with a sack. Bush had a half sack. Bud added a sack and a half and 7 tackles for loss. So that was huge defensive play to get pressure on the Texans, where we kind of talked about it the week before, knowing that was the Texans' weakness, was keeping people away from their quarterback, and our strength was rushing the quarterback.
Dude, here's how ridiculously spoiled Steelers fans are now. That performance seemed underwhelming to me. I almost expected more pressure on Watson. It's like we almost kind of forget now that you don't just go out and get 5 sacks a game like it's normal. That's not normal. That's not what most teams do, but it's what this team feels like. It feels like every passing down, you just expect them to get to the quarterback or at least put some heat on him. You know what I mean? It's a ridiculous defense, and it has been. The coverage in the first half was certainly soft and a little suspect. You know, Robert Golden, again, mentioned it perfectly. Steven Nelson's technique wasn't perfect on the touchdown pass. They have had their lapses.
He was kind of hanging with him, but he just got a little bit out of body position and couldn't attack the ball,
They've had some lapses, but I think when you factor in the fact no preseason, and as he said, you know, Tomlin mentioned you don't want to warm up to the game. I do think there will be a natural warming up as the season goes. We saw last season they got better as the season went as well. Adding Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of helped that as well. But, I mean, it's awesome, man. It's a crazy defense to watch, and I truly think that we have not seen their best yet on either side of the ball.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And they're 3-0. So I don't know how much more excited. I think you watched that Chiefs-Ravens game last night, and you see –
I did.
You see what the
on
Chiefs –
the back porch.
Yeah.
I love
so
it.
when you look at the Chiefs, that's obviously they're the class of the AFC Super Bowl winners last year. You look at how their offense and defense were so polished throughout that game. That's still what the Steelers need to get to. You know, I think when you look at the elite teams in the NFL, the Chiefs are still on a different tier that the Steelers haven't reached yet. But you look at the pieces, everything we've talked about, they have the pieces to get there. It's a matter of time of when it happens, and it's going to be exciting when or if it does.
Well, even though we are ahead of the Ravens, I just read a tweet earlier today. You know, Lamar Jackson, since he's come in to be a starter, he's 21-1-1 against every team that does not have Deshaun or that doesn't have Mahomes playing quarterback for them.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
3 of his 1 and 2 in the regular season, I think 1 in the playoffs were all to the Chiefs.
That's pretty crazy, honestly. I mean, but you can't even fault him for that. Mahomes is truly on a different level. Watching that game last night, even when you put a guy right in his face, he'll hang in and still make the throw. He's pretty unfair. There's a reason he's a half. There's a reason he's a
underhand,
half,
no look, left-handed. It's like, what the hell?
look, you don't get paid $500 million with a B if you're bad at football. So dude's pretty special.
If you're not the best with a B.
yeah, exactly. That's the real killer bees there, dude.
That it is, man. That it is. And just wanted to highlight a couple of defensive things that came out from the last game. They held Houston to 29 yards rushing, which again was what they did to the exact same amount of yards they held the Giants to in their first game.
Wow.
We mentioned it before also. This is the best they've done in franchise history at fewest rushing yards in their first 3 games. We're talking about the Steel Curtain years. We're talking about the Blitzburg years all the way through the 90s and even the Hinkle years and stuff in the 80s where they had some good solid defenses as well. But this is a feat. I mean, with all of this history of defensive football, that's a big feat.
Man, especially it's amazing.
They're not 100% yet. Like they're rushing the passer well, they're playing the run well, but they're still not 100% there yet. So this might be a real special team.
And hey, man, as much as people want to talk about the Steelers' combined opponent record of 0-9, on this topic, rushing the ball, they got Saquon Barkley, Melvin Gordon, and David Johnson. Those are no scrubs. You know, that's solid competition. Yeah. And they got Derrick Henry coming up next. So we're going to really see what they're made of and how that statistic will bear out, because Derrick Henry's been one of the best in the league over the past 2 years. He's really found his rhythm. Huge dude, hard to hit. It's going to be a fun matchup. I'm excited to see Vince Williams meet Derrick Henry in the hole.
And I at least want to say at least our opponents are 0-9 instead of 3-6 because we beat all of them. So that is one of those statistics that I just hate. They just grind my gears. And I'm like, you know, we are a byproduct of our opponents being as bad as they are.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd have more wins.
Exactly.
But you got to play the guys that are ahead of you on the schedule. Fortunately, we did not get Houston's schedule to start the season this year. But last year, if you remember, there was no rest for the wicked back then. We started off with New England. Then we played Seattle at home. Then we played San Fran. Those
Yep.
3 were all division winners. So, I mean, they're I mean,
and the Steelers were 0-3. So look what happens.
After that. Yeah, we lost a quarterback as well in the second game, but
It
you know,
matters.
and they played them like I thought the Seattle game, the San Francisco game, they ended up being competitive games.
Yeah.
But you know,
They should have beat
play.
San Francisco flat out. San Francisco game was a win. That there was no reason to lose that one. But
not having Ben was a part of it. That was the first start that they had to go. But you know, that was last year. This is this year. We got Ben now. It's great. You know, Mike Hilton had a great game with 7 tackles.
That guy.
Another tackle for a loss, an interception. Minka with 5 tackles, Watt with 4, 2 were TFLs. I mean, I couldn't be happier with the defensive performance, special teams. Ray McLeod now jumping into special teams since the only minus. I mean, I love DJ as a returner unless he is fielding punts inside the 10-yard line. I do not want to see him fair catching balls inside the 10, let alone inside the 5, let alone on the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
That is the only inexcusable part to his return game. But Ray has shown he is a valid returner in both spots now. And with DJ coming off of this concussion, I think that's probably going to continue.
It's weird, man. It's weird that he hasn't pieced that Deontay hasn't pieced that together yet. I mean, he's muffed a punt. He's ran straight into Cam Sutton, and now he fields a ball at the 4-yard line for some inexplicable reason.
Well, he also ran one back for a touchdown. But
that's what I was just going to say. There's no question in my mind that you want him back there returning punts, and once the ball is in his hands and he's running, he's as electric as it gets. Yeah. But there are definitely some mental gaps so far in Deontay's game, and that's kind of when I was talking about earlier when he takes that next level. That's his biggest thing. That's literally all that's keeping him back right now is himself, which honestly is exciting as a Steelers fan. He's still super young. He's still developing. He'll figure it out. I have no doubts in my mind that he'll be an elite receiver and punt returner in this league. It's just a matter of when. And it's frustrating watching as a fan when you know what he's capable of and he's still making these mistakes. I think it's almost a blessing that you get kind of upset or, you know, you kind of feel that he should be better because that speaks to his potential and what you expect of him, which is greatness because he's shown that.
Yeah. And some quick hitters here, too, for the rest of the game. 80 plays for the Steelers compared to 47 for the Texans. They only had 4 possessions in the second half. 3 were 3 and outs. And then the other ended in the interception. It was the only drive where they had a decent push. Time of possession was essentially 37 minutes to 27 minutes. That is huge. Penalties way better. Not 10 this week. We only had 2 this week. And the Steelers defense has now increased the longest streak in the NFL for consecutive sacks to 60 consecutive games. And especially this stat goes out to you, Hunter. Renegade was not played in the stadium for the first time in I don't know how long.
They won. See? Undefeated when you don't play Renegade, Steelers. You should have been doing it all along.
Right. So now we get to our game balls. I've got to go. My offensive game ball, you know, I went offensive line. We went offensive line last week, and, you know, this is continuation on his performance this week as well because we had the 2 starting right tackles, 1A, 1B, and Zach Banner and Chukwuma Okorafor going for it. So we were comfortable either way with whoever's going to be the starter. Evidently, Tomlin was spot on because Chooks held J.J. Watt to no pressures, no sacks, and that is a huge feat coming off the strong game from the previous week where he also didn't allow a sack or a pressure. So, you know, these guys being thrown in the fire, they're showing that they are the next guy up and they're playing well. So, Chooks, you get my game ball.
That's a well-deserved game ball. And quite frankly, I think I would also go with Chooks in this case, but I'll switch it up for you guys. And I'll take James Conner, man, because they've got a 100-yard rusher in every game so far.
Yeah.
Benny week 1, James last week and the week before.
Heck, wasn't Steeler Nation calling for his head after that first week?
I was. That's what I'm saying. I was. I absolutely was. But
just give you
it's what last week. I think I repented for that last week.
You did. Yeah, I'm just giving you.
So I went to my confessional, Father. You know, I've already cleansed these sins. But James, he looks so good, man. He took that challenge, easily could have bagged it up. The ankle looks fine. His running looks as good as ever. He's both shifty and powerful. He's fun to watch again. You know, when he was the guy replacing Le'Veon Bell, everybody had questions because Le'Veon was undeniably one of the best running backs in Steelers history from a talent perspective, just unbelievably talented guy. And Connor kind of seamlessly just took over. So now we're seeing more of that special James Conner flair again. So it's good to see. And you talk about time of possession and things like that. He was a huge reason that they were able to dominate that. So you can't understate the importance of a 100-yard rusher. Usually means good things for that Steelers team.
Yes, it does. And on defense, my game ball has to go to Mighty Mouse again. No vacancy at the Hilton. He's again showing he is the playmaker on defense 3 games in a row, making big plays, fast in and disruptive in the backfield. And the one thing that I do love is my old coach in high school used to tell me, first time's luck, second time's skill.
Yep.
So when I see Hilton bust that lead block on those bubble screens to tackle receivers in the backfield on the edge, that is huge. And he's done it 2 games in a row. They were 2 big TFLs and big, that's tough for the offense to recover from those. So cheers to Hilton and the biggest interception of the game, which was the game changer in my opinion.
It's kind of unbelievable that he's been probably the best player on this defense through 3 weeks. Of all people, it's you're on a depth chart, a third string cornerback, it's the third guy down. But he's just been so phenomenal. And there's no doubt that he's no backup. That dude's a starting player in the league. He's making an impact week in, week out. I mean, once again, I definitely would take Hilton for my game ball here. But
that's why I had to go first.
Who else do you even take?
I think it's about time to give TJ Watt a
okay.
game ball, because we've avoided giving TJ Watt a game ball for the past 2 weeks.
That's just
guy
not
is
fun.
all world. I mean, Hilton's I think he's probably the most disruptive player in the secondary, but the reason why he's so disruptive is all these great players playing in front of him. We know the offensive line, the linebackers, but specifically, we got to give TJ some props this week with the body of work that he's been putting together this whole season.
Yeah, I did see a stat that he wins 29% of his reps in a pass rushing situation. The league record is 25% for the course of a season. So if he keeps that up, he'll not only break the record but smash it. And once again, just like the team and the defense as a whole, I feel like as good as he's been, we still haven't seen his best either. He's not forcing the fumbles, getting the punch outs that he was getting towards the end of last season. There's still another level for TJ Watt too, which is pretty unbelievable to think because he's already there. Like you said, we could give him the game ball every week. He's consistently making an impact, but the fact that there's another level to his game is exciting. Specifically,
you have to give it to TJ as well, because I think he won the battle of the Watt brothers that week. JJ held very silent. Derek had a good game, but he got hurt early. Actually, he has a grade 2 hamstring. Unfortunately, that may be a 4 to 8 week injury. So Steelers may make a move today or tomorrow. If they do, we may bring back an old favorite in Roosevelt Nix, who is currently sitting out of the football right now. And I had to look up too quick, Hunter, because I wasn't sure why he's out or what performance-wise was, or if Indy went with a different fullback. No, Indy went old school Arians and went with 0 fullbacks.
Wow.
They have 3 running backs only on the roster, whereas the Steelers have 5, 4 running backs or 4 halfbacks and a fullback. But they only have 3 halfbacks. And they utilize them all differently in the running system, but they don't have a fullback. So that's why Rosie is unemployed. We also need somebody for those special teams plays, and Rosie would be an exact fit for all of the spots where Derek was out. So we'll see if Tomlin extends an olive branch to him this week to see if he gets a call up.
Sure, I wouldn't hate seeing that, but ultimately I hope that Derek Watt's injury is just not that serious and we can see more of what they paid for with that acquisition. I think he was slowly starting to settle into the offense a little bit more too, which was exciting. I'm just always, when you get a new guy, you want to see what they got, right? Like you want to see him go through the paces and see what they have to offer. So we still haven't got to see that with Derek Watt. So ultimately, I just hope the hammy heals up. Hamstring injuries are tricky, man. They can linger. They can. There's nothing you can do for it besides rest it, really. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. But hopefully he's back soon. If Rosie has to fill in the meantime, though, that's a guy I have full confidence in.
Yeah. And Deontay Johnson was the only other guy that got banged up in that game, and that was on that play that I highlighted earlier, showing Ben on the big block on the reverse. And unfortunately, he ended up with a concussion at the end of that play, did not return to the game. He will be in concussion protocol. Obviously, he has to be symptom-free to practice. Then if he practices the next day, if he is still symptom-free, he clears concussion protocol. So there's a process for concussions, and he was going to take the first day off anyway because of his toe. They've been nursing that over the first 4 weeks of the season. I think he has a turf toe, and those things are really tough to come back from. And he's probably going to be playing with some kind of lingering turf toe for most of the season.
Yeah, which is a shame too, because he's a guy, once again, mentally he's held himself back a bit, but also his body hasn't held up at the pro level. He was injured throughout rookie camp last year, injured throughout camp this past year, his sophomore season. He's just not as durable as you'd want to see yet. I don't know, unfortunately, what you can do for that. Antonio Brown obviously had the Jerry Rice quality work ethic. He was famous for his workout routine and how seriously he took his physical conditioning. So I don't know if that's an area where Deontay might need to beef up a little bit more. I know he did work on it this past offseason, came in with a little weight added, a little bulkier coming in, but still clearly maintained his shiftiness and his agility and everything you'd want to see. So maybe that's just going to always be a work in progress for him. Maybe, he'll just have these injuries throughout his career, which obviously you hope not, because at his best, I can't say it enough, I truly think he's special and he will be an elite receiver.
I agree. But he's playing hurt. I mean, he played almost all last year with that injured groin, got surgery on it after the season. He injured that groin in training camp.
Yeah.
He likes to say he did it in game 3, but he had the groin issue before in training camp. So, that speaks a lot to his character. I expect him to be back, though I think it's also his second concussion. Yeah. So we got to mind that as well. With smaller receivers, it's a little tougher on them.
Sure.
The Mike Tomlin presser is going to be at 6:00 today. Usually it's at noon, which is why we had the podcast at 2 or 3, so we can follow up on the presser and let you guys know what's going on. But unfortunately, everything got pushed back because of this COVID news. The news out right now is we're going to have a game, which is good. So going into this weekend, what do you see for the matchup then between Tennessee and Pittsburgh? I mean, obviously they have a good running attack, which fits very well with what we do well, having an exceptional running defense. What do you see going on this weekend, Hunter?
Yeah, we've mentioned Derrick Henry a lot, but that's only because of how much of a game breaker he can be. I think anybody who watched the playoffs last year is all in on Derrick Henry's stock, what he did to Baltimore and what he did for their entire run to the playoffs. He's phenomenal. He's huge. He's tough to bring down. He's exactly what you'd want from your bell cow running back, which is a dying breed in today's NFL for sure. But beyond him, man, it's not like it's just the Derrick Henry show. Ryan Tannehill has had an exceptional season. By his own standards, he's clearly elevated his play this year. He's been efficient. I was looking at his stats. He has something like 6 touchdowns to 1 interception, I believe. So just like Ben, he's been very efficient. And that's the thing. It's that kind of team where they might not blow your doors off, but they're also not going to shoot themselves in the foot. You have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. So one thing that surprised me, though, they're 3-0. But all 3 wins were extremely close. Here's the score. Against Denver, 16-14. Against Jacksonville, 33-30. Against Minnesota, 31-30. Combined like 6 points.
6 points. That's insane.
It's insane. They're easily also 0-3. Like right. one more play and they're 0-3. So this team, the jury is certainly
one more
out.
Kicking miss and they would have been 0-3.
Exactly, man.
Right misses to do in the first game when he was 0-3 going into the overtime game winner.
What stood out even more to me though was that last year Tennessee was such a defense first team, defense and running team. Through 3 games they've allowed 30 points twice already, so their defense is clearly not where it wants to be at this point in the season. Maybe that's an area where the Steelers can exploit them and this can actually turn into a shootout, which is not what you would expect, but I'd be down to see it. I'd be ready for a shootout for sure, because I think the Steelers have far more weapons to win that battle. So honestly, it's an exciting matchup. 3-0 versus 3-0 is always exciting. I don't think this is the Titans team of last year. And honestly, I think the Steelers are going to move to 4-0, man. It looks like it's in their favor again, as long as they show up and don't warm up to the game, as Robert Golden put it. I like that saying. I'll be stealing that for sure.
And the big thing is, last game was the Steelers' first game in 25 games where they did not turn the ball over. So if we can make this a trend, I think that really works in the Steelers' favor. Obviously, Titans not being able to practice in a consistent way this entire week should benefit the Steelers. Steelers still do have to travel, but I don't even know. I don't know if they're going to have fans at the game now that they have issues with COVID now in Tennessee.
Yeah.
See, there's supposed to be fans for this game in Tennessee, and it would be nice to see a couple terrible towels waving in the stands.
That'd be a cool sight, man. That'd be a very cool sight. And also, one thing I forgot to point out is A.J. Brown, the Titans' top receiver. They're not sure if he'll be back from an injury yet this week, but it's really not looking great. Hasn't played yet this year, so we'll see. But A.J. Brown, he's a great player.
He played with the Ravens as well that one year, didn't he? Yeah. He's a really good possession.
So we'll see what they got going on there. But we'll see, man, with this team. It's an exciting matchup. Once again, Steelers 4-0 sounds pretty decent.
That it does. And, guys, thanks for joining us on Twitter. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. Shout out to Anthony Laird. Of course, you've been in there both weeks in a row. Good seeing you again. And, Hunter, another beautiful hour spent with you, my friend. And, obviously, everybody follow Hunter on Twitter, on Instagram, at Hunter A. Homistek. That's at HunterAHomistek. Great to have you as well, brother, every time.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me again. We can do this all day.
I know.
Now we've set the bar with Robert Golden, though, so I don't know how we're going to follow that up, but we'll make it work.
And the crazy thing, I was thinking this myself. I said, if we had a terrestrial radio job, we could fill 4 hours, 3 hours, no problem.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's nothing to that.
It's the way it goes, man, especially when you have somebody fun to talk with the entire time. I'm glad to have you as a partner in crime, Hunter.
Sure, dude. Thanks, man. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. And Steeler Nation, we will be back at 2 o'clock next week and the rest of the season. We will be having – so tune in, obviously, on Twitter, tune in on Facebook, and you will be able to follow us and watch us live. We will have the vidcast up later on our YouTube channel. And, of course, we have the podcast up by about an hour after the game. Visit our title sponsor, Total Sports Enterprises, on Twitter to be part of their signed merch giveaways done every week. Obviously, get in on that Bud Dupree jersey at Total Sports ENT on Twitter. Retweet it. You're automatically entered. Retweet the podcast site as well, and you get two. If you follow us as well, you get 2 entries. So good luck, guys. That's given away tomorrow. So good luck, Steeler Nation, on winning that jersey. And you too can get great, unique gifts on the SteelerNation.com gear page. We have great shirts, every size and color to satisfy all of Steeler Nation's virtual tailgates. SteelerNation.com is the best site for fast, unique Steelers content on the internet. Click on the podcast button to listen to one of our many interviews, or click the forum button for the best football discussion on the internet. Subscribe to SteelerNation.com YouTube channel to be the first to know about our live vidcast and video uploads. Tweet us at Steeler Nation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN podcast and Instagram at Steeler Nation podcast. Or you can follow me, your crazy host with the handlebar mustache, on Twitter and Instagram at SN_Striker, spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us again for the SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with Hunter Homistek and Robert Golden, rooting along with you, as always. Go Steelers!